A compromise could end gerrymandering in Ohio. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Kathy Kandinsky, State House reporter for the Columbus Dispatch, Joe Ingles, State House reporter for Ohio Public Radio, Herb Asher, OSU political scientist, and Mike Gonidakis, Republican strategist. Gerrymandering may not be dead in Ohio, but it looks like it's at least going to be limited. Voters in May will decide a bipartisan compromise redistricting plan that aims to make Ohio's congressional districts more competitive. As you know, the current map carves Ohio into districts that significantly favor one party or the other. For now, the gerrymandered districts give Republicans the advantage. The new plan, in theory, would create more fair districts. The legislature still would have control of the process. It would not go to a commission, as some advocates wanted. To force bipartisan compromise, the map would require 50% support from the minority party. To limit squiggly line districts, county splits between districts would be limited. If voters say yes in May, it would go into effect for the 2022 election. Lawmakers say public opinion forced the deal.
At the end of the day, there was a historic compromise struck in a time and in a period, not only in maybe our state, but throughout our nation, in which it seems awful hard to get to a point to have compromise.
Ohioans felt as though their voices aren't being heard, that our current redistricting system was rigged, had rigged the game, and so that it's the politicians choosing the voters and instead of the voters choosing their politicians.
Herb Asher, you have been working on this for a long time. Is this a good deal?
Yes, it is. It's an improvement over what we currently have, so I think it really worked out well. I think one of the things that motivated was that you really had a group of citizens out there who really were working to put their own proposal on the ballot. And they probably were going to have success in getting it on the ballot, in part because I think there are more and more people now who are aware of redistricting and gerrymandering and its negative consequences. Plus you have more and more media outlets saying how bad the current system is. Plus you have court decisions at the national and state levels that are declaring gerrymandering unconstitutional. So the time was ripe. And one of the things that I think empowered or encouraged the legislature was to say, if we don't do something, then the citizens group might in fact do something and be successful. And yet there was enough of a concern about one or the other side winning that I think it brought them together for a compromise.
Does it end gerrymandering? Gerrymandering has been around for more than 200 years. Will this end it in Ohio? Joe?
No, I don't think it will end it at all. They'll still be able to gerrymander. They just won't be able to easily have snakes on the lake like we see in the current congressional map. We won't see these places where they've divided them so much that the representative in that area can't represent all the constituents. If you think right now we have Upper Arlington, we have parts of Southwest Ohio, and they're very different in makeup being represented by the same person.
Mike, why did the legislature, they controlled the process. They could have conceivably drawn the maps for the next 10 years. Why did they agree to a compromise? Why didn't they stick it out?
Well, a couple of reasons. I think, as Herb said, I agree with him 100%. The timing's right. You know, the political politicians aren't going to be able to raise money to defeat the Citizens Initiative. It would have passed, and no corporation's going to give money to defeat this. I think it's bad politics and bad perception. But at the end of the day, Republican Senate President Larry Alpoff deserves a lot of credit. He's not in it for credit for getting this done, because the Dispatch reported this week in a behind-the-scenes story, he continued to reach across the aisle to the Democrats and to others. Kerry McCarthy, one of your guests you have on your show here too, to get the best deal possible. Is it perfect? No, but it's great, and it's a lot better. And what it does, Mike, is it holds politicians accountable now, because these new districts that are going to be drawn, are not going to just be solidly Democrat or solidly Republican. There's going to be more 50-50, and at the end of the day, that's a good thing. We can hold our politicians accountable.
Kathy, how are Steve Stivers and Joyce Beatty, the two current sitting congresspeople representing Franklin County? They have very safe districts. How are they going to take to this?
Well, this whole thing is going to be interesting to see how it plays out in the next election once these new lines are drawn in the next election after that. Right now, we have roughly 75% of our congressional seats held by Republicans, 75%, 25% Democrat. As you know, the split in our state is more even than that. So the question is, how is it going to readjust after the gerrymandering is eliminated, or at least tempered in some way? That remains to be seen.
With fairer and more balanced districts, right now we have 16 members of the U.S. House. It'll go down to 15. It's 12-4 Republican. if we had a fairer system, it probably would have been 9-7, 10-6 Republican, in part because Republicans have a little bit of an advantage. Their vote is not as concentrated, so it's a little bit more difficult to create districts that hurt the Republicans. But in fact, a balanced system, probably after we get, I guess we're going to lose a congressional seat. We'll
Probably a Republican seat, don't you?
Well, it depends on what happens, and if any incumbents retire. It's legislators in drawing the lines always are looking too to see, well, where is their own state legislative district and what might I want to run for in the future and that sort of thing.
So why didn't the groups that were pushing for the reform, why didn't they stick out for the commission to take it further away from the legislature? Because there's always that conflict of interest there.
Sure. But I think what they really thought was the possibility that if they did not compromise, that the GOP could go to war and try to defeat their proposal, and that they would not be on even grounds in terms of raising money. So I think they were a little worried that there actually could be money raised to defeat their proposal. They're also been at this for such a long time that I think they're recognizing that some degree of improvement is worthwhile. But they're also saying, we're still collecting signatures now in case this proposal is defeated. I don't think it will be.
Yeah.
And they're going to watch very carefully.
Joe, now this group passed the state legislative district redistricting reform package a few years ago. That won overwhelmingly, but this is a different game. There's more money involved here. This is affecting national politics, affecting Congress. So it wasn't going to be as easy a campaign.
Well, and that's the reason it wasn't done when the legislative redistricting was done. There are so many powers that be that were putting pressure on the people who were responsible for negotiating this plan. And, it was kind of like a puzzle. They'd move one piece and they'd get a phone call from someone saying, hey, wait, now look what you're doing over here.
Yeah.
Well, this discussion really started with the Constitutional Modernization Commission.
Sure.
Dealing with both the state and the congressional districts. And then Matt Huffman took a lot of the work that the Modernization Commission did and moved forward at the state level. But one of the things that happened is that we got a call from Speaker Boehner saying, could you avoid touching the congressional districts now, because there's actually a court suit before the U.S. Supreme Court questioning whether or not you could in fact use a commission approach to do this. And so, of course, the Republican members of the Constitutional Modernization Commission, yes, let's wait and see what the Supreme Court does, and the Democrats on the commission sort of acquiesced to that. So we never moved forward with that, and the legislature was waiting. But now, in fact, as everybody has said, the time has really come.
Mike, this is not a guarantee, because if they can't reach a map that both parties agree to, the gerrymandered partisan map could go into effect. It just would be in effect for 4 years.
4 years. That's correct. Again, it's
So
not.
what happens then?
Well, it's not. Again, it's not a perfect proposal, but it's the best I think we're going to have.
Yeah.
And then keep in mind, there's going to be unintended consequences of this too. Joyce Beatty's seat's only 2 cycles old, 4 years, 6 years, and we have historical black seats that could be in jeopardy when these maps get redrawn. Because I know everyone wants to protect their own kingdom and take care of their own, but with this new system we have in place, everything's up for grabs on a redraw. So a safe seat for Joyce Beatty today might not be a safe seat for Joyce Beatty tomorrow.
There was a concern, Kathy, that I think there was some state reps, African-American state reps and senators who said this does hurt African-American representation in Congress.
Because just the same way Republican seats are protected, Democratic seats are protected too. So of course they got to be concerned about that. Ultimately, though, whatever the party that's in power has the upper hand on this, and this will make it more even into the future. So we'll see how it plays.
All right. Speculation of who will run and who will not officially ended this week. Candidates faced a Wednesday deadline. There were some mild surprises, last-minute wealthy but unknown entries into the races for U.S. Senate and governor. The major candidates for governor remain. Apparently, a lot of people in Franklin, Delaware, and Licking counties want to serve in Congress. 19 candidates have filed to run for Pat Tiberi's former congressional district. 7 Democrats, 11 Republicans, and 1 Green Party candidate. Joe Ingles, you live up in Delaware County. Why do so many people want to represent you in Congress?
I don't know what's in the water up there, but I just want to say I'm not running for anything. I think right now a lot of people are sensing that, hey, it's the time to get in. You've got Pat Tiberi stepping out, and you don't really have an heir apparent. So I think that has something to do with it. You also got to you know, a lot of people are just energized right now. There seems to be an energy in the air with a lot of political candidates. They either are pro-Trump and want to be just like him, or they're anti-Trump. What we don't see a whole lot of are these moderate voices. You know, we don't see a lot of people like John Kasich who are running right down the middle anymore. So I think that people are just looking at these as possibilities for the future.
Mike, on the Republican side, it seems like the candidates are fairly moderate. There's no far right candidates running for Pat Tiberi's old seat. It doesn't seem like it anyway.
No, and the way it's drawn, I think it's a moderate district. It's not a liberal district. It's a center-right district. And I think of the 19 candidates, it's a Republican district. A Republican's going to win this seat. Of the 11 Republicans, there's 3 credible candidates. I'll just say it in my personal opinion. It's Senator Bacon, Senator Balderson, and Carol O'Brien, the Delaware County prosecutor. One of those 3 will be the ultimate winner of that seat when all's said and done. But it'll be fun to watch candidate forums for the next couple weeks and next couple months.
And if a less than credible candidate wins, either because he or she goes so far to the right and says, well, if there's so many candidates running, all I need is 15 or 20 or 25% of the vote, then in fact that seat, which it is a Republican seat, still might be one that the Democrats would want to keep in play, assuming that they can nominate somebody who's a credible candidate.
And there are 2 vote getters on the Democratic side. In the past, there's been a low name recognition, smaller candidate.
Well,
Nothing against them, but Danny O'Connor, Franklin County Recorder, Zach Scott, former
yep.
Franklin County Sheriff. There's some named candidates there, Kathy.
Well, this seat has not been an open seat for decades, has it? I mean, I can't remember the last time this was an open seat. So the idea,
John Kasich left, but he basically
kind of anointed
Pat
Tiberi,
yeah.
exactly. No question the district leans Republican, heavily leans Republican, but it's an open seat for the first time. So I think that's why you're seeing all the interest from both sides on this.
Year of the women candidate. Only 3 of the 19 candidates are women in this race. Carol O'Brien is probably the most qualified, not qualified, but you know, most likely to win. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of the year of the woman or year of the man or year of the whatever. It's the best person runs, the best person wins. The Democrats in Ohio have proved that. You know, you've got Rich Cordray, Dennis Kucinich, the front runners for the Democrat nomination. Neither of them are women, of course. So at the end of the day, on the Tiberi seat, you know, let the best person win.
I still think, though, that in that district, we're hearing a lot of people who are very conservative, and I don't think there are the true moderates that we have seen in the past. I think they tend to lean right.
On the voters, you mean? On
the candidates.
Candidate side.
On the candidate side.
Remember, a candidate does have the ability to try to position himself or herself
Right.
further to the right than perhaps they had been
Right.
previously
Right.
in the hopes of winning. But the danger there is that if they do that, then in fact you give the Democrats a little bit of an opening, particularly if it is O'Connor or the former sheriff as the nominee.
general.
So,
There's no Roy Moore-like candidate in this field that we know of at this point.
Thankfully.
No,
Thank
there's
God.
none like
Yeah.
that.
There's nothing like, no outlier.
Or too bad from a journalist's point of view.
That's good copy. Surprise Senate candidate, Dan Kiley, financial advisor from Cincinnati, will self-fund his campaign.
To $1 million, so
Yeah.
that'll last, what, 2 weeks? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I think one of the things that we're seeing, you know, when you have this many candidates, all of a sudden money really matters, and it matters big, because if you don't have name recognition, you've got to somehow introduce yourself to the electorate, and the only way you can do that is with money. And so those people who don't have the name recognition, they really need to have more of it to be competitive. And you know, looking at what we can see of the last financial reports, some of the candidates just need some more money because they're going to run into problems
There's only
not
so
having
much
it.
money in the system, you know, how
Right.
it all gets parceled out. I mean,
Right.
of course, people using their own money is one thing, but as far as donated money or contributions, there's only so much.
Herb, he calls himself a unifier, which is code for I'm not the Trump guy.
Yeah.
And he's running against 2 folks who are Trump folks. Is that what he's hanging his hat on,
he's
this
trying
new
to carve out a
candidate?
segment of the electorate. But look, any candidate can get attention from the media if he or she provides good copy, if they actually go so far to the right or so far to the left. So, and you don't need money to get free media. But if you go too far to the left or right, you may shoot yourself. Although it may be a way of trying to. The thing is, on a Republican primary, going too far to the center is not.
Yeah. They're certainly not going to go to the left.
Is not the way to win votes from the activists who participate in the primary.
All right, our next topic, 2018 provides one of the most crowded governor's races in Ohio's history. We have 11 candidates to choose from, 8 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and 1 Green Party candidate. Most of them are long shots, or to be generous, medium shots. Kathy Kandinsky, again, the same question, why so many candidates for governor this time around?
Again, the same answer, Mike. This
Open
is
seat.
an open seat. This is an open seat for the first time. You know, the governor's term limited, can't run again, so this is an open seat. And Democrats, of course, feel this is going to be a good year for Democrats, so I think that's why you're seeing more of them crowd into the race than you might have otherwise.
But this is even more crowded for an open seat. We've had open seats. I mean, before. I mean, after Bob Taft, for instance, there was an open seat. We didn't have 11.
But like I just said, I think people are feeling that there's real opportunities for a Democrat to win this time. So I think that's why you're seeing a lot more Democrats. You don't see as many on the Republican side.
And then when you see, you start off with 3 Democrats, 4 Democrats running, and then other Democrats are saying, well, wait a second, in a split field, I don't need 50%. I might not need 40%. And so it encourages more people to get in, hoping that they can, in fact, attract a certain segment of the electorate.
I'd go as far as to say the Republicans have their house in order. Just this week, the Ohio Republican Party voted 59-2 to endorse Mike DeWine. That's huge.
Yes.
County parties are too. Mike DeWine's going to be our nominee. Democrat side, it's going to be a food fight.
Well, let's look at that Republican side. We have Mike DeWine against Mary Taylor. I think there was some, mild speculation that maybe Mary Taylor would not even file because she was so far behind in the polls and in the money. Were you surprised that she actually went through with this and is filed this week?
I was. I really thought she would take a step back ultimately, but she didn't. She's in. Does she stay in is the question. I don't think she'll stay until primary day. I think more and more groups are going to continue to endorse Mike. Our field's set. We don't need a primary. We don't need to spend money. The Democrats don't want a primary. They're going to have one. It's, and Rich Cordray, you brought this up a little bit ago, Joe. He has no name ID, and he only has $2 million. This Dr. John Heavey that just entered has the same amount of money as Rich Cordray right now. Rich has to spend all of that money to win this Democrat primary. Democrats are going to have a tough time coming out of this primary.
I think the Democratic candidate will end up with enough money.
Sure.
And a primary may not hurt the Democrats in this.
It might not hurt Cordray.
Because it might not hurt Cordray because it's going to help.
If he wins.
It might not. All right, what he said, but it might not just because it gets him more name recognition. That's a chance for him to get his name out. If he has an issue with that, which I think I agree with you on.
If you look at that Democratic field, I mean, there's a lot of 8 candidates. Some of them are really long shots. There's the former stripper from Dayton who's back.
Why?
And this guy Ray, I don't know, he's in an apron.
This guy Ray, it sounds like a winner.
That's right. But there are some vote getters there. Bill O'Neill, Connie Pillage, Joe Schiavone,
Emily's listed.
Dennis Kucinich.
Don't write off
Yeah.
Dennis Kucinich.
Front runner.
So the question becomes, let's assume Cordray wins and he gets 35-40% of the vote. How do the media describe that victory? Do they say it's an impressive victory in a field of so many people? Or do they wind up saying, well, he didn't even get 50% and yet he's the front runner? And of course, you'll see both sides trying to spin this. Republicans saying sort of a weak performance and the Democrats saying pretty impressive to get that much of the vote and, with 8 candidates or whatever. But I think actually Cordray, because he's not that well known, needs a primary to help hone his skills as a candidate.
I think so, too.
He's wonderful in terms of talking about what he did in terms of statistics and the issues or whatever. He could improve tremendously in telling real stories about real people who in fact were helped by his agency, and just make him a more personal candidate, if you will.
Joe Ingles, John Heavey is the Northeast Ohio doctor
Right.
who is donating $1.5 million. That puts him ahead of Connie Pillage and Joe Schiavone combined at this point.
Right.
But he's unknown. He's no political organization.
Yeah.
Doesn't have a base of support to start. I mean,
Right.
how seriously should we take his candidacy?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I know we were trying to do a little bit of research to find out more about him, and he was pretty obscure, really. There weren't that many places that we could look. Social media, he doesn't have a large footprint there, and he doesn't seem to have the organization that some of these other candidates have at this point. So it'll be a real question mark to see how that plays, actually.
Don't you just feel that these days it takes anything can happen for somebody to catch fire, though?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you hate to just write off anybody in
That is
this
absolutely
climate.
true.
Herb talked about Cordray honing his message, but when you're on stage and there's 7 people, one of them's Dennis Kucinich, you're not going to get much time to get your message out there in front of the electorate on these voting nights. And then number 2, Emily's List has already come out and endorsed Connie Pillage. So if this is the year of the women for the Democrats, the largest pro-woman organization with a ton of money has come out and doubled down on Connie Pillage. Rich has a lot of problems if he thinks he's going to be the nominee.
But he could use the practice of participating in debates. It'll make him a better candidate.
Getting back to you mentioned the state party endorsed Mike DeWine and Jim Renacci this Friday. Should parties be endorsing candidates before the primary?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? You know, any group can endorse anyone they want. State party can or choose not to. You know, they can say we're going to stay out. But just because a party endorses doesn't mean that the will of the people still will not rule. Maybe the voters will select Mary if she stays in. I don't think she does. But yeah,
Put the thumb on the scale a little bit.
it does, because they get to use the postage, the indicia, and they get cheaper mailing rates to go through the art.
Didn't you say the Democrats were unwise to nominate or to endorse Ed Fitzgerald a few years ago?
I think I did.
You know, some state parties have rules that say they will not endorse, but here in Ohio, you know, as you said, they can choose to get involved or not get involved.
How long do you think Mary stays in the race?
Probably not much longer. Well, I don't know. I'm not advising her, but I think in the best interest of the party, she should consider her exit strategy sooner rather than later.
And I think she's among those that put her own money into her candidacy as well, right?
She had $500,000. She just dumped $3 million in.
I think a lot of that was loaned money too.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, but she can loan it, give it back.
Does she
Get it
try
back, yeah.
to, at least for a couple of weeks, say, look at the old guys in Columbus, they're trying to force the only female candidate out to seat. Does she try to get some play on that?
Yeah, you also you don't have to spend the money. You can stay in the race, and if something happens, you know,
You can get it
stranger things
back.
have happened. A scandal, a change in the race, an unforeseen. Donald Trump's popularity skyrockets, and she's the Trump candidate. You know. You
Where
never know.
where might she go though? That's another question I had. What might
Nowhere.
she get? Nowhere.
No.
Yeah. Can't run. Well, she didn't run. There was some thought that she would run for Congress or another statewide office, but that apparently is off the table. So.
It'll be interesting to watch.
All right, our next topic and final topic in the city of Columbus, a proposal for a district or ward-based city council is back. It could return to the ballot as early as this May. The same group which led a failed effort to change city council in 2016 will try again. It would change city council from its current 7 members elected citywide to one with 13 members with 10 representing districts. The plan would also limit campaign contributions and change the way City Council fills vacancies. Mike Gonadakis, does this plan have a better chance or still the same slim chance that the last plan had a couple years ago?
Well, I think we're in an environment of making things fair and getting rid of gerrymandering and rigging. You know, we just spent the past 3 months listening to Fair Districts Ohio, whatever their name is, the left, the media saying we have a broken system for congressional races. Well, we have a broken system at City Hall. It's rigged. Whenever there's a vacancy, they appoint someone, and the same cabal elects them in and out. You know, the streets aren't getting shoveled in Clintonville, but if they had a ward representative over there, I guarantee you those streets would get shoveled. So all those people that watch this show in Clintonville, you should support a ward-based system, okay? There's so many problems in the city, but when you have everyone living in and around the downtown core, they don't care about the people that live up at Northland area or over by Hilliard, but it's Columbus taxes. You know, so this city has gotten so big, this little kingdom that Andy Ginther has built does not look out for everyone throughout the city on the south side or anywhere else. But if you had ward-based, they would look out for those neighborhoods.
Well, the kingdom predates Andy Ginther in all fairness.
but it's his now. He has the keys.
And there's another sort of narrative for Mike's position. That is, right now, Republicans are shut out in the city.
Right.
And so if there were wards, they'd have a better chance of picking up a couple of seats on council. But I'm not sure this proposal will be all that popular. They've wrapped too many things into this. I'll be curious to see what Zach Klein says about whether it meets the single subject requirement. Evidently, there was an opinion from the
Zach Klein is the city attorney,
Yeah.
former city council president.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the former city attorney, Rick Pfeiffer, said, no, you can't put all these things together. But single subject things are really defined by who is ever in
I was
charge.
going to say, do we really expect any different opinion than we got from Rick Pfeiffer?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Zach is, at the beginning of his term, he has a little bit more freedom. He may look at it differently. Maybe he's trying to appeal to the, the reform group or whatever. But, we routinely violate single subject requirements, especially at the state level. We do that in budget bills and all that. But there's an awful lot in this. And so if I were opposing it, I might just pick out one little part and say, this is awful and never should be in here. The proponents will say, oh, look at all the good things that are in here, and if you can find just one thing that you like, please vote for it.
This has a map. The last time, there were folks who wanted district representation, but they didn't have a map, and they said, well, I'm not voting for this unless I can see what these districts look like for fear of gerrymandering. Does that help?
It absolutely does, because people can see it, touch it, feel it, and look at it and say, hey, this is where I would be, and I can call my ward councilman or whatever the name will be, and I can hold them accountable for the problems that we have in our city. Because right now, who are you going to call?
Well, Joe, why not just pick one subject? Like, if you're going to run a campaign, get the big money out of city politics. I think that might resonate if they pick that one issue and put it on the ballot.
Maybe, but we're not going to see that because that's not the way it works usually. So.
Yeah. Herb, would that pass? Get the money out of city
Oh,
politics?
absolutely.
If
I
you
mean-
stuck with one issue?
If you literally just had on the ballot one campaign finance set of restrictions, and you didn't put public financing into it, I mean, you kept it, but you put, it would pass. Because a lot of people say money's evil, even though it's not, may not be evil, but that would work. But
All right.
I think this is going to lose.
Let's get to our off-the-record parting shots, some predictions for the weeks ahead. Mike Ladakis, you're up first.
I think early next week you're going to see a story from a respected journalist here in Ohio that is pretty alarming regarding the medical marijuana program here in Ohio. And I think after all Ohioans read it, we're going to have to hit the pause button on the current program.
Herb.
The proposal for changing Columbus City Council will lose, and the proposal to the constitutional amendment for congressional redistricting will win.
All right, and Joe.
We have all these candidates running for office, and I think it's interesting that there are very few that are under the age of 40.
Interesting.
Interesting, I don't know.
Well, Danny O'Connor, he's under 40, right? For pet teeth.
Just a few.
Just a few then.
Just
Yeah.
a handful.
There's a bill in the legislature right now that would freeze cost of living increases for public retirees. I think it's running into some headwinds, and I think we might see that put it shelved.
All right. Whoever wins that crowded field, whoever wins the Democratic primary for governor is going to have an odd campaign message to the voters in, say, Southeast Ohio who voted for Trump the last time around. The Democrat is going to say, vote for me to keep John Kasich's Medicaid expansion, because that's going to be a huge issue in those areas, and the Democrats will say the Democrat will protect Medicaid expansion and not the Republican candidate. So it'll be interesting there. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online. We are on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and you can see each episode at our website, wosu.org/COTR. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.